some of these, I'm just going to show you all the examples, and other ones you all can practice along. So, and this is again your sandbox space, your space to practice in. So please feel free to edit as much as you wish. This is your practice page. So today we're going to go through things like images, alt text, a little bit of metadata, ordered and unordered lists. So similar to last time, you're obviously, if you haven't figured out by now, I do love Manatee. So these are our examples. So today, we're going to first start out with images. We're going to do some very basic things that sometimes, again, as I mentioned last workshop, this is no shame if anyone has made these quote mistakes. They're just things that we're learning best practices today. So no worries if you have done this in the past. I certainly have. So the first one we're going to look at, if you want to follow along with me on your practice page, we're going to be looking at our very first image of this manatee. We're going to be clicking into it. So I'm clicking the image here. As you can see, it also highlights here on the WYSIWYG editor. And it has our source here. So I guess right off the bat, between that first image and the second one, either online or in person, can you tell me kind of the difference? You could actually see it visually here on the edit screen. All right, yes, exactly. So the first one does not live within a snippet, so that is mistake number one. We want to make sure that all images, anywhere that you can add an image to a snippet is done so. So that's either on a text page or a gallery page. This will make sure that it is resized correctly, it's accessible. So first thing off the bat, yes, this would need to be in a snippet to make that accessible. So that's point number one. Let me look at this one. All right, and so we're actually going to look at that first image again. So as you can see, it's appearing correctly. You can see the manatee, the image is crisp, so nothing really looks wrong with it. When I click into it as well, when I look at the path and the source, it actually points to the correct place where I need it. So, and it also has an alt text in there. Is there anything else that maybe we can do to make this image even better in terms of the source? Add a dependency tag, exactly. So dependency tags are, again, those, it's a description with a letter and numbers within brackets. And again, we want to add these to every single image to make sure that if anything's moved or renamed, that it also is kind of following, it kind of locks this tag within its place. And then if anything's changed, it doesn't disrupt this image, for example. So all you have to do is probably going to locate me to the proper image anyway. So I'm going to click here on the dependency manager. There it is right there. It actually points me right to it. So when I click on it and click insert again, it auto populates with this dependency tag. Yes. That's an oversight on my part. So I'm just showing you this one. Yes, you all might not have access to this images folder. Sorry about that. So, and you can also see from the dependency tag that it actually underneath it shows you where it's located within that images folder. So yeah, my bad on that one. Yes. Like, would you all be able to access it?
Yeah.
That might be a workaround. I actually, okay. Yeah, so let me point out, we have tried our best. So with permissions, a lot of us here have kind of our parent sites and then child sites, so the subsites within them. Some people have certain permissions to subsites, whereas an images folder might live at the root or the parent root of that directory. So sometimes it gets a bit hairy to figure out how you can have access to an images folder. We've tried to combat that and update everyone's what we have in the directory variables as a default image folder. So what it should be doing is putting you right into the images folder that you have access to. And yeah, so that's kind of something that we do come up against a lot, but I guess a workaround. So if you don't have access to it, you could actually switch to the production server and then you're able to locate that image. So that's a good workaround on that one. This was just here to show you all, again, we have our proper dependency tag here and we have it within a snippet. And this is just a good example of alt text for this image, manatee looking directly at the photographer. So that's perfect. So that's just very first rule of thumb. Make sure you're using the dependency manager and that you are putting images into snippets. So the next part, we're actually going to be focusing more on alt text. So I'm going to give you a bit of background and a bit of knowledge on alt text and how it should be written, and then we'll give you all a chance to put your own examples into the chat. So for the first one, it is an image with text on top of it. So sometimes, potentially if it's just an image, you could just be describing Rhea Law standing at the podium, but there is text on top. So what do we do in this instance? So if an image includes text, that text should also be present in the image's alt text or the description. We don't want to use picture of or image of in the alt text. Screen readers automatically indicate that it's an image prior to announcing the alt text, so you don't want it to say something like image of Rhea Law, because that would be redundant. We want to, also a caveat, we want to avoid using text on images if at all possible, but if it can't be avoided, you will need to add it within the alt text itself. So would anyone like to, for this image, put their best example of alt text in the chat for what this should be for this image with this text on top of it, and then I'll kind of let you know what I would do as my example. So again, images text need to be present in the alt text as well, and also describe the image. So it has to be a twofer in there. So I'll give you all a minute to do that. Oh yes, no, all guesses are good. All right, so we have President Rhea Law at podium with text, inauguration of President Rhea Law. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's a great one. Things are going to be pretty similar to that one too. Mm-hmm.
Like wearing regalia, flowers, and any other.
It's up to your discretion. You can get more granular if you like. And let me here, I'm going to actually pull up the example I have. Margaret's example in the text was almost exactly what I had written. So I'll put mine in the chat as well. Here we go. All right.
I would say it's not super necessary to describe the flowers or all the details. I think just getting the big picture out there, keeping concision in mind could be useful or helpful for people using screen readers.
Something that stuck out to me in another workshop was they explained like if it was a photography website or a design website, like obviously you want to include more detail about the like layout of the image.
Yeah,
right?
context for sure.
Yes.
But
Yes.
this is the story about how the teleprompter failed, mention that there's a teleprompter. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So when I said the question was, like maybe on a photography website or someone who's sharing art online, how to describe that image. So what we like to say is, so we don't want to put things like image of, but you can say something like watercolor painting of a man fishing off a boat or something. And yes, and if you are, I would say in that context, and like Annalise said, it's all about context. So if you are, let's say, selling artwork and things are, maybe you have a few different pieces that are similar, you can actually get a bit more granular in your alt text to make sure that there's differences there. And something like this, I wouldn't think you need to go more granular than Rhea Law standing behind a podium. But again, like we even mentioned the seal, so that is negligible as well. What we want to make sure is that we are including for this one in particular, the text on top and just a bit of description of what's happening. So it's kind of up to you all.
We do have another question in the chat. Should we describe the person in the picture? Sight impaired people may not know gender, age, dress. But I did answer in the chat. I said, that is a good question. I wouldn't want to assume gender or age. I can see how that could be tricky or sticky. So you may want to be cautious with how you approach that.
And I would say, yeah, in general, whenever I'm including alt text, that's not something I'm typically mentioning. It'll be something like USF students standing in front of the Marshall Student Center throwing up the Go Bulls hand sign. So I don't go out of my way to get that granular because we don't want to make assumptions about age and gender and things like that. So I would say, if at all possible, try to avoid that when you're doing alt text. But yes, I mean, it's up to your discretion, really. There isn't a perfect way to do alt text. We just want to make sure that the appropriate elements are getting in there and that it's accessible. Okay, so this one is a really interesting one. This is this is actually from our documentation, but it is something that I actually worked on with the department. So a lot of us, like, this came from, I believe, World. There's things like admissions. We have things that are graphical in nature and they have a lot of information on them. So in terms of graphics, and I'll give you a bit of information on those for alt text. So they can be useful for visitors, especially those with cognitive disabilities. However, if a text, image, diagram, chart is used, the information should also be provided in the body copy of the page. So for example, if a complete flowchart is needed, bullet points or paragraphs presenting the same information should also be included underneath that graphic. The alt text can include what the graphic is, but it should then direct the visitor to the extended description in the body copy, if that makes sense. I was going to have you all practice this as kind of it's a big lift because it's a lot of text. But can anyone either online or in the room even tell me, so knowing that we both have to include that the body copy is included and also describe the image, could you put your best guess in terms of alt text, what you would put for this graphic, for this checklist? Just as the alt text, not anything in the body copy, just what this could read. This one's a bit confusing. It took me a while to learn this one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Text on image.
Yeah, yeah.
Text following image.
Yes, that's a great example. So I'm going to actually share the whole window and just bring up I'm going to stop sharing the window, but then stop sharing that screen. I should have done the whole window. Why is it doing this to me? Screen. There we go. So this is actually, let me pull this up. All right. So yes, so I don't know if you all heard Margaret. She said something extremely similar to what I wrote as the example. So all I put was onboarding game checklist, which is basically describing what the graphic is. And then I wrote extended description follows. And then we didn't practice this, but this is what I also put in the body copy. So again, we described it in the alt text. We explained that there's a description or information about it that comes after the graphic. So in this case, they were using one of our snippets, so it actually came to the left side. So what I did was I created an ordered list and put all of the items in the checklist into the body copy. So that's how we do it in that sense. So again, we like to avoid as much as we can using things like graphics with a lot of text, but sometimes it's necessary and it is something that's very visual and helpful for those who need this type of resource. So we want to make sure that if you are using it, the alt text is just again, describing the graphic and also explaining that there's information that is following that's helpful. So I hope that all makes sense. Okay, so those are the ones about essentially alt text. Are there any other questions for this one? Okay, the next one is pretty simple. This will kind of be a yes, this is correct, no, this is not. So right here, all I did was use our button snippet and I have linked to 3 different resources. So there is still some information out there and things that we're just learning all the time, but to our best knowledge and what we like to tell our users in terms of opening, let's say binary files, meaning images or documents or links, either in the same window or a new window. So how do we do that? So what we like to tell our users is that anything that's internal, including let's say, so for example, Margaret is in charge of the engineering site, but let's say she wants to link something to, for example, USF News. Because it's still within our CMS, even though it's outside of our own website, we would still recommend that you have that file or that link open in the same window, as opposed to, let's say, a PDF document. We want to always open that in a new window, or something like an external link, so something that does not live within Modern Campus. So for those of you with practice pages, they can kind of see, I hope this does what it's supposed to. Okay, nope. So I'm actually going to go within the edit view. I'm going to actually refresh this because my edit bar isn't coming up. But you're going to all tell me if it's opening in the correct window or not, based on how I put this in here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go to the first link. And even when I click on it, again, that link icon is highlighted in the WYSIWYG editor. So when I click on it, this is savethemanatee.org. So this is not something that lives in our CMS, and I have it opening in the current window. So would you say that I would keep that or change that? Change it, exactly. So that should be opening in a new window because it's external. This is our USF College Planning Guide. Let's see what it is. So if you look here, it's actually a PDF. I have it opening in the current window. New window, yes. So anything that, again, is binary, and what I like to think of binary images and documents where it's created and then uploaded. So it's not something where you can create it in staging. There's a PCF for it, and then you can send it out. So anything like a PDF or a document, an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, you want that to open in a new window, just so that it makes it more accessible for users to be able to use that resource, and they don't basically X out of the content that we're just looking at. And then this one is just our USF News page, and I have it opening in the same window. What do we think about that one? Correct? Yep, that one's correct just because it lives within Modern Campus. But up here, you can see that this actually isn't using the correct dependency tag, so that's something you would have to change as well by clicking on the dependency manager and then navigating to the page I want. Oh, I'm using a different keyboard. Once I go to news, I'm just going to the index page. That's the one that I was working on. And there's your dependency tag right there. And I'll click save. So again, anything that can be basically downloaded should be opening in a new window. Anything that doesn't live within Modern Campus or our CMS should open in a new window. Everything else should open in the same window. So that one's pretty easy as well. Okay, we went over this last time. I changed it up a bit, but the next one is essentially going over essentially using your own formatting as opposed to, let's say, some of our tools in the WYSIWYG editor. So I have these two lists here. So this one, colleges found at the University of South Florida. So it is listed right here. Can anyone either online or in the room kind of tell me, there are two things here that I don't love about this list. Is there something that we can change to make that better? Exactly. It doesn't need to be an ordered list. So an ordered list is something like, for example, a checklist. Things have to be in a certain order. These are just naming colleges found at USF. So it does not need to be ordered. It needs to be unordered. Anything else about this that we can fix?
Is it
Exactly. So this looks fine, but actually these are just typed in numbers. It's just a number with a period next to it, and they put a space. Any chance that you can use our formatting, please do. So two things we have to change is, one is essentially get rid of this formatting, and then also just make it an unordered list by using this tool here. So this is your ordered list. You can see the 1, 2, 3 right here. This is unordered, and you have a few different options. We can do these cool squares. And what I'm doing is just fixing this list right here. And you can do the same on your practice page. There we go. So that's how that list would be fixed. And again, that also is good to be using our tools because it will be, it will resize based on the window. It'll be accessible, things like that. And then a screen reader will know that an unordered list is now here, as opposed to it saying, you know, bullet point, College of Arts and Sciences, bullet point. It won't make as much sense. So again, tools just gives it a bit more context. And then the next one, it's basically the opposite problem. So any issue with steps to graduation? Yes. Exactly. So this is just a bullet point I pulled offline. I just copied it and pasted it in there. So this one actually should be an ordered list I actually took this from the commencement website, and these were in order 1, 2, 3. So again, you're gonna want to just remove this formatting and then go to your numbered list. And this one, I'm just going to use the numbers, although we do have some other options. We have letters and Roman numerals as well. These are the different options you can use. And that's how you change that one. So that's everything on the text page in terms of these common mistakes that we see. So formatting, ordered lists, unordered lists, opening a new in the same window, images, graphics, alt text. Do we have any questions before moving on, or anything that maybe you've been editing recently that you have questions about? Uh-huh. Yes.
What are I try to encourage people not to do that, to do
Uh-huh.
shift enter to make it not have
Okay.
normal, like paragraph space.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. So you're
So
saying,
like if you undo the order,
mhm,
put in like regular paragraph space between each item.
like this?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
the way you had it before, they were switched.
Oh, like this?
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
I
People
don't-
do that in my
Mhm.
instance of CMS a lot, and I try to tell them not to because I just know that like
It's not-
code is weird.
Okay,
And I don't know
yeah.
really why to tell them, and if I have a
So-
why, it's easier to get.
Right. Okay, so the
Okay.
question in here was, some people use the shortcut with, I believe it's shift return to make this a single space in between lines as opposed to a full space if I just deleted and clicked return. So one thing you can do if you want it to only have a single line in between is you could actually use a tool in the WYSIWYG editor. So if you actually, let me do this. I deleted it, and this is actually our line break. So you can enter a line break, and then
The same.
I'd have to go ask our developer to see if it is the same thing as a shift enter, and I can get back to you. But that is something that they can do where they're actually using a tool and then as opposed to their own like shortcut in terms of like on the desktop. This one? Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. Yeah. So you have to go back and fix it all like this. Yep. Yeah, so that is something you can use as well, just that line break. I'll get back to you though on that because that's interesting to know if it does change the code, if it's just a shortcut versus a line break. Right. If it right. Do we have any other questions? I know these are pretty simple, but I do the images with text and then the graphical elements, I think those are really helpful. You can find both of these exact examples on our documentation in the CMS user guide under accessibility. Annalise, if you can share that link on the chat. So if you didn't see this recording, or let's say you just wanted to do a quick check on it, these are actually found within our documentation. So this is something I had to learn as well, because it didn't come organically to me to know, like, for example, how to write alt text for a graphic with all this text on it. And then the last thing is pretty simple, and I went over a few of the elements last time, but I'm going to go into, let's say you're working on a website that has a home page, which almost all of yours does, if not all. So I'm going to go to the index. Keep typing on the wrong one. And just a few things for you all to note. So I'm going to check out the page. I just copied over the Honors College homepage. So this is actually all the elements that they used in theirs. So what I wanted to note was that moving forward, and we do have some extra, this is just on our template side. It hasn't been updated yet, but just so you all know, and moving forward, what is the best practice. So within your metadata or the information that's basically put behind the scenes that is incorporated with SEO, with search engines, the two things that you really want to pay attention to are the title and the description. So the title, and they did a great job with it here for the Honors College. So what you're going to want to do for the title is include the name of the website itself. And then because theirs is, for example, they're not, this is a parent site. So what they're putting here is perfect. So it's the name of the site, and then they do a shift backspace, or excuse me, backslash. It does this straight up and down line, and then University of South Florida. Let's say, for example, the website I'm working on is for just their study abroad programs in the Honors College. It would look something like this. It is a child site, then the parent site, and then basically our larger entity, which is University of South Florida. So that's how it would look. For their description, we would want to beef this up a bit because it doesn't describe what the website is talking about. You should keep the description between it should be pretty short, 1 to 2 sentences describing what users will find when they come to the site. And also, in terms of search engine optimization, this is what Google will pull when you see it on a search engine results page. So you want to make sure that this is descriptive. It uses keywords throughout the website within the description. And again, it just gives the users a good idea of what they'll find once they get to your site. Keywords isn't something that's actually used in our templates that's really going to help you with SEO. So in this instance, I would just get rid of all of those. What you're going to want to do again is utilize the descriptions in all of your text pages, for example, and use keywords within the description that are used on that particular page. So that's how you're going to want to incorporate keywords. But in terms of metadata, you don't really need to add them here. Same thing for the author. This is just a default. It just says University of South Florida. You can leave that alone, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to just save this. I'm just going to publish this to test, just so you all can see the page itself. And this is just a common mistake that we see a lot, and just to show you how to fix it. So again, my page is loading correctly. This is what it looks like. Everything looks great. But let's say I'm editing a widget and I'm changing the order of things. So I'll go back into my, check it out, go to properties, in my parameters, and let's say like, okay, I want to change things up. I don't really want, this widget here. So what I'm going to do is actually just clear it out and click save. So first thing you'll notice is that it changed basically a few things on my site. Oh, I go down and things look real strange because I removed that widget. I'm going to actually publish it to test to see what it actually looks like live or on our test environment. And you can see that I broke the page. So rule of thumb, if at all possible, do not leave widget areas blank, even if, for example, you have, so for example, let me show you this one. So in this instance, so I'm just going to copy this one and put it back in its spot so it's no longer broken. But this is also something that's interesting to learn. So in this widget section, we have widget 1, 2, and 3, and this is on a default homepage. So you can think of the widgets on a default homepage as essentially 3 columns of widgets. And we offer 1 column widgets. So again, you could have 3 individual 1 column widgets. You could have 1 2 column widget with a 1 column widget, or 1 3 column widget. Those are the ways you can do that. And I will point out that, for example, if you had a 3 column widget, you can actually put it here in widget 1, and it will actually essentially take over the widget 2 and 3 as their locations, but you do not want to clear out the widget even if it's not being utilized, if that makes sense. So I'm going to save this just to show you all. It's going to show 2 of the same right here. But for example, if you had a 3 column widget and you put it in that widget 1, it would actually take up all 3 spaces. But again, do not clear out widgets 2 and 3. You could just keep those. You could just say that those are placeholders, because otherwise you're going to end up with a broken site, which is what we do not want. So again, when in doubt, if your index page in particular is not publishing correctly, check the widgets. That's a one that we come across a lot. And again, you all are just doing your due diligence. You're saying, okay, we don't need this widget in here. Let's clear it out. But in terms of our templates, it gets confused. So keep those in there as much as you can.